Life had just begun,
and now I've gone and thrown it all away. Mama!
Ooh. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies and the characters that make us feel seen. My co-host with me today is nothing short of a legendary figure. Regardless of whether it is genre, regardless of whether it is television, film, more broadly, you will know this actor from. This actor, this director. From Scream, 13 Ghosts, you definitely know him from Scooby-Doo. The Life of Chuck, which brought me to tears last year, you know him as Serial Killer. From Hackers, SLC, Punk, She's All That. The Descendants, the Academy Award-nominated Descendants. The TV show The Bridge, which I really liked. Five Nights at Freddy'S, Twin Peaks: The Return. The TV show Halt and Catch Fire. Cross. More Scream on the way. Daredevil Born Again. I mean, I could go on. But what do you, Matthew Lillard, think the folks should know about you before we get started here, in addition to all those obvious credits?
The most important, father of three.
Yes.
Married 25 years in this crazy-ass business.
Beautiful.
And I own two companies. I own a partial owner of a company called Beetle and Grimm's. We make high-end Dungeons and Dragons, geek fish accessories.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long day if I get thrown on the word accessories. And then Find Familiar Spirits. We make spirits for geeks.
As somebody who's not in the D&D space, what are examples of high-end accessories?
Yeah, so we are the boxed edition. If you love Pearl Jam and you're the ultimate fan, you'll buy the boxed edition. We are that for Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast puts out adventures that are anywhere between 250 and 350 pages. Each one of those pages has an opportunity to expand an adventure. And so what you don't have as a dungeon master to prepare for a game, in time you may have in money. And so we put together a $500 and everything you can need to elevate your game experience, whether that's a ring of power, in the adventure, if there's a ring of power, we make the ring of power. If there's a ransom note, we'll make the ransom note. So we just go next level on your game. And if you're somebody who's been playing Dungeons and Dragons as long as I have, which is, I started playing when I was 9.
Oh, wow.
And I still play now at 56 years old. So, you want the best game experience you can because it's one of your favorite things to do. And so we build a box that elevates that game. And then I have a whiskey company that we create high-end spirit experiences around fandoms. Our first one is a whiskey called Quest's End. Each bottle has a different chapter of an ongoing saga.
Right, you actually you produce editions of these spirits with fiction tales.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we did a drop last year with Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
And he wrote us a novella called Rare, Fine, and Limited. It's an unbelievably macabre story. And so that's the thing I think that's interesting about me. I mean, look, all those movies, most of the things you just named are in the 90s, early 2000s. If I was just walking around life holding on to those tokens of success, then my whole life is so empty between those times, right? I always say it's not the job of acting that kills actors, it's the time between the jobs. And so at some point in my life, I figured out.
I heard you give a quote that was no actor ever left acting because he was just simply acting too much.
Right, exactly.
There was just too much acting being done.
Yeah, or somebody's I didn't like the parts I was getting, so I decided to go back to waiting tables. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And even a great career and a great year, you can work 50 days a year.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing for the other 216?
Yeah.
20, 50, 30, 33, 65.
Hundreds of
215 days. Not 16. I don't know what. It's a leap year. And that's the thing is for the longest time when I wasn't working, that time was consumed with insecurity and calling agents and managers and really freaking out about, am I ever going to work again?
Yeah.
And I learned that the best use of that time is to fill it doing other things.
It was something that I was wondering about with directly, I heard you talking about when Descendants came along, that was about your 40th birthday, and you and your wife had kind of made big decisions to We have to streamline our lives. Like, the work isn't coming. Something drastic has to change. I wanted to hear from you as somebody who has spoken about, even at this stage in your career, saying, I'm still not thinking I'm guaranteed my next job. How does having these different enterprises that you love and that are supportive of you, how does that change how you approach acting jobs you
Well,
pursue?
it's funny.
When it mitigates maybe the survival requirement for the acting jobs when you have these other things.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is I'm a partial owner of both companies. Both companies are successful. I've never taken a dollar from either company.
Okay.
That's not true. I've been bonused out at the end of a year on a good year. But so I don't take money from either entity because then I'm beholden to the entity. And if along comes a job and I have to get out of town for 9 months, then you can't be paying me. And I don't feel good about it. So the reality is that my life is still dependent on my day job, which is acting.
Okay.
And the funny thing happened.
Oh, you guys, he's doing this for the love of the game. Find familiar is the love of the game.
It really, I mean, look, in success, yeah, hopefully I like to make money. But the reality is that I'm on business calls every single day. I'm the co-CEO of the company. When I'm not working, I'm on calls all day. Yeah. I'm on emails all day. And it's a little like running a theater company. I've had 2 theater companies in my life. Mean Street Ensemble when I was 19 years old. And then Summoners Ensemble after I graduated acting school at Circle in the Square. I just am getting such a kick that I got to give both of those entities a shout out. Because nobody's heard those names together in 20 years. And so there's something about bringing people together, working towards creating a project and launching it into the world that is so satisfying for me as a person. And when we do something, we just announced Ghostface Vodka. So we licensed the iconic mask of Scream. We literally 48 hours ago launched it into the world. We have 30,000 people right now on an email list. And the first 48 hours wanting to buy a bottle.
I mean, you couldn't find a better group of people who will buy things connected to the thing they love than horror people.
Yeah, and also and that's our thing.
It's not a passion, it's a lifestyle.
I completely agree. And when we created Macabre Spirits, which we did with Mike when we launched that, the whole point is to create spooky stories and combine that with an alcohol inspired by the story. So Mike wrote this story that's an amazing story. And I think he would tell you, if he was sitting right here, he wants to make it a movie. Like, he loves the story. He's super proud of it. He was like, it was supposed to be like 250 words, or I don't know, 5,000 words, I think is what it's supposed to be. And he's like, hey, I'm writing and I'm really enjoying this. Do you mind if it came back at like just under 20,000 words or something?
It went from a novella to a
yes,
novella.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And he loved it. And so we read the story. We came up with a spirit. We crafted the spirit around the story and we released them together. The crazy thing about that brand, which is built for the horror community, is that they don't know what to do with it. They're like, here's a spooky whiskey. And we just did something with Christopher Buehlman, who's like my favorite writer. And he wrote like Black Tongue Thief. He wrote Those Across the Water. He's an incredible writer and wrote this great book. But nobody in the horror community is looking for a novel and a bottle of whiskey together in the same package. Like, they're like, I don't know what to do with this.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I know a whole collection of people who build their lives around a novel and a bottle of something.
I mean, that was our thing.
That's like an unwind time.
How great is listen, we're actually going to go, I don't think we're on topic at all for anything you want to talk about.
I know exactly how we're going to get there.
Okay, good. But we want to do I'm going to sponsor a sale and basically give it away because I want people to know what we're doing. Filling my life, building things with people, creating experiences for fans, and really using an entrepreneur self-belief that came from my dad has been such a boon to my life. And the more I sort of lean into that, the more my day job has been calling lately, which is like this. It's almost as if when you ignore what you're supposed to be doing in the universe gives you what you're supposed to have.
God, it's so annoying how much that seems to work out. But I know exactly how we're going to get to the thing that we're going to talk about,
good.
Which is that something that I really latched onto in reading interviews with you and listening to interviews with you was a return to, and it's certainly my bias of it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately too in these trying times, is is community. And something that the thing that I find most beautiful about filmmaking is it's the ultimate team sport. And what you like, the character that you said that you had connected to for the purposes of our conversation is from a movie that you directed, the film you directed, Fat Kid Rules the World, an adaptation of a book by K.L. Going. And I wanted to hear from you about the experience of community and being the head of community in making a movie like this that took you a decade of your life to bring from nose to tail, to bring out into the world.
Yeah. It's funny because when you asked the question, I couldn't help, I kept thinking of titles. Like, who do you relate to so deeply as a character in movies? And I think it's a really interesting premise for a podcast.
Oh, thanks.
A conversation. And my wife actually said, what about Troy and Fat Kid? And I thought, listen, it's a little self-serving, and I hate sort of like talking about a movie that I directed, but I will say that it was a life-changing moment for me, and I'm happy to sit in this sort of moment and sort of reminisce about something I did 13 years ago, but it took 10 years to make. So I was given a book to do as a book on tape. I've never had that experience before. I've never been asked. To this day, I've had one offer to do a book on tape.
Wow, that was the one.
And that was the one.
Wow.
And like most things that in my life that I don't know what to do with, I ignore. I definitely have an avoidance tendency.
I've developed that actually as I've gotten older.
Yeah,
I've noticed. I didn't used to have that, but I have. I will set it and it will pile up in a little stack.
It is. And if it's a no, I can say no quickly.
Yeah.
But if it's I think so, but I don't know, it hangs until somebody makes me make a decision.
Right, okay.
And the problem I have is I say yes to a lot of things. And I'm like, at some point I regret saying yes to everything.
Is it easier to say yes to something that just feel kind of ambivalent about than to say yes to something you feel really passionate about?
No, passion.
Or that
I'll
might...
always jump in passion.
Okay.
The problem is that in this moment I'm having right now, I have a lot of options to do a lot of different things. I have two companies. Both companies need attention. There are a million things to do to support both companies. And then I have my job. And then I have literally Five Nights just came out. We have Scream 7. We have Cross Season 2. And we have Daredevil.
Which was one of my favorite shows of last year, Cross Season 1, actually.
Oh, Cross Season 1's great.
Yeah, me and my wife dove into that one.
It's a 40 million people watched it in the first 20 days.
I'm hooked on Reacher as well. So shouts out to Prime for bringing me what I need.
Yeah. They are... it's crazy. And when we went to do the show, the second season, the first show hadn't even released a trailer. So nobody knew anything about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyways, but that's so saying yes to this was complicated because I just didn't know what it was. I have a very mushy mouth, and me reading, I read fast and I jump words. And so me reading a book on tape turns out is a nightmare. I'm not very good at it. Is a nightmare. But I finally said yes. I read the first 10 pages live on the recording and I broke down crying. I mean, I just started sobbing. I stepped outside and I grabbed my cell phone and I called my manager, and I've never done this before. I'm like, I have to option this property. A month later, I had the option and I told KL, I was like, I hope she hears this. I'll send it to her. I said, I'm going to do everything I can in my power. I'll never forget. I was on the way back from Palm Springs. I pulled over. I had kids in the car. I walked around the car for 10 minutes. When I finally I got a chance to picture my vision. I'm like, I don't know what the movie is. I've never said I want to make a movie before. I read your script. I was moved. I found myself relating to Troy and who he is. And I'm promising you right now, I'm going to pay you for it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do everything in my power to get it made. And I did. I mean, we went out and hired Galvin and Speakman, this writing team that were really lovely. And they did a great draft on it. And I took that draft around Hollywood for 2 years. And I was like, I can't make this for less than... Now, look, the premise of the book is an obese teenager is at the very onset of the story is about to jump in front of a train in New York City to kill himself. And this guitar savant vagrant stops him and then sees Troy as a mark and starts to manipulate him to get money, to get food. And they start this unsuspecting relationship and become friends and start the relationship switches power, like the stakes sort of switch And Troy ends up saving Marcus at the end. And it's a beautiful story. And it's all about punk rock and being an outsider and finding somebody that sees you and sort of growing into a moment of strength. And so I was like going around Hollywood with this great script.
Yeah.
And I can't, and this is after like Scooby-Doo and Summer Cat. I was like in the middle of Warner Brothers, sort of like this surge of films. And I was like, I can't make this movie for less than $20 million.
Wow.
And
that is not what it ended up being.
No. And I was like, I can't, there's no way to make this movie. I mean, we need a train, we need special effects. There's all these sequences. And turns out, surprise, surprise, Hollywood is not that interested in making a $20 million movie about a fat kid and a sexually ambivalent, promiscuous junkie.
Yeah.
That's just not that we're not interested. And so I can't make it for less than 15. I take it back out. I can't make this less than 10. There's no way to make this movie less than $5 million. What are you talking about? And at the end of this long run, I finally ended up giving, is this interesting at all?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yeah, it is.
You promise?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I ended up giving the rights back to KL. And in a weepy sort of phone call, I was like, I tried so hard for years. I mean, this is like,
I was going to say, how many years is
this is probably 7 years. Wow. Of like really every time you meet a producer, which happens every time, you're like, I have a script that I want to direct. I need 20 million.
Was the counter that you were getting, was it like we'll give you this much, or was it flat, like this is not in our scope?
Hollywood's very interesting. They never say no.
Yeah.
They just pull it along, and so they don't ever have to say no. Listen, we're going to read it. We have something else. We have this horror movie. It always goes back to, hey, would you do a horror movie?
Of course, yeah.
So long story, way too long. And if you're still here, you're so brave, because there's no end in sight to this fucking story. So I ended up letting it go. And I ended up around that same time doing this independent film. And the producers of this film were fans and were friends with a guy named Kevin Lyman that runs the Vans Warped Tour.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to the Vans Warped Tour to promote this movie called Summer Bummer or Summer, who cares? I went to go promote this movie, and I looked around, and if you don't know about the Vans Warped Tour does like 36 dates in 42 days every summer for like 20 years, and 58 bands perform every single day. They break it up. They break it down at the end of the night. They get in their trucks and in their buses, and they reset it up in the next city. I mean, it's an incredible machinery, and it went around everywhere. And I looked around and I saw all these little punk rock kids, and I'm like, oh, all these punk rock kids, this is their opportunity to buy their punk rock swag once a year. Yeah. What if we had a movie made for these punk rock kids? This movie's about outside. This movie represents everyone that's at this festival. And I'm like, that's the machinery. That's the thing. That's how I'm going to sell the movie. Right, and I talked to Kevin Lyman. I'm like, I want to take this movie. I'm gonna get the rights back. We're gonna make the film. We're gonna put it on the entire tour. And every time after, 1 week after we leave, we'll do a screening of the movie and we'll kill it. And I do these readings at my house called Actor Actions. And for years, what I would do in between not having businesses to run is I would bring in actors to my house every 2 weeks, and we would read a play cold, right? And then it's really about community. You sit in a circle.
And you've also done teaching.
Yes.
You're also teach acting.
I do teach acting. And that's something, I mean, all my life I've been filling my holes without work with community, right? It's the big theme for me. And so we never read screenplays, but this one weekend, this guy named Ryan Lewis was there, and he's a buddy of mine, and he's a producer. And we read Fat Kid because I'm like, oh, I'm going to brush this thing off because I just found this machinery. Yeah. And we did a reading, and Ryan Lewis was like, hey, can I show that to somebody? He showed it to Rick Rosenthal. Rick Rosenthal's this producer. He's done a bunch of movies. He's a great independent producer. He brought me in. We had a conversation, and I'm like, here's how I'm going to sell the movie. And he's like, I don't care about how you're going to sell the movie. I want to know what movie you're going to make. And in that conversation with him, he said, I'll tell you what. I like you. I like the script. Why don't we shoot 3 scenes? And if it goes well, we'll consider making the movie. Okay. And in that moment, I said, great. I'll put up 10 grand you put up 10 grand and we'll shoot 3 scenes. And he was like, he literally said, I was thinking more like maybe $500 and we go shoot scenes with like iPhones. And I said to him, I was like, yeah, but if we do 10,000 each, we're both invested. And if it doesn't work and you don't want to do it, I'll have film that I can then go show people that I can direct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, okay. So then my sister runs the Seattle Film. I'm now talking for 100. Are you still awake? Are you still with me?
I am. I'm so because
I'm so embarrassed. I'm still talking.
No, I think this is important because we know you so well as an on-screen figure, and then it sort of comes like at this midpoint-ish of your career. Like I've heard you talk about like Serial Mom as like the table setter for like what you would go on to do after that. And obviously we've mentioned like the big 90s titles that you're known for early on. But I mentioned Life of Chuck. I mentioned I wasn't simply playing on nostalgia, but like from where we are now to 2026 from back in like the mid 90s, like we have this midpoint where you decide to teach yourself a new discipline and throw yourself sort of headlong into the mentally abusive system of trying to get an independent movie made.
Yeah.
And you did so because presumably this thing meant so much to you and connected with you so deeply that you were willing to be told no and no and no and no and no over and over again. And so to me, this is all the story of why this was so important to you.
Yes. And there's also an old man thing about me that once I start a story, I get really invested in my own stories. And I realize halfway through, I am like, why am I still talking? I'm so sorry. I should shut up and have a conversation instead of just talk at you.
But what was the emotional seed of this where there was such a need to find through hell or high water the way to get this made?
That's the question. From talking too much to dead silence. What is that? Why did I like commit so much? I mean, listen, when I read those pages, I saw myself represented. Yeah. I saw a kid that was lost, that was obese, and had suicidal ideation. I never had suicidal ideation. Okay. But I was lost and obese, and I found acting, and it saved my life. I don't know where I'd be without acting. And I found the same thing was true for Troy, and it like something about that I had to do it. There is a tenacity about me. I think there's a tenacity about a lot of people who are successful in whatever line of work they're in, that once I get a bone, I'm not gonna let go. Right? I'm gonna fight for that thing. And I believed 100% in what I was trying to do. Yeah. And so when I closed the window and the open window came, like I saw an opportunity and I jumped at it, it was because like, oh, I've got to make this thing. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think I thought I was going to be good at it. I was floundering in my career and as an actor, and I was like, maybe this is my next step, and that's why there was like a survival instinct there. The crazy thing is, it went on. We shot the movie for $750,000,
not 20 million.
Turns out 20, yeah, and it was like 250. I mean, it was like it was a lot. I mean, I was ADing it. We shot in like 7 to 18 days, but it went on to win the South by Southwest Audience Award at South by. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm done acting. I'm not acting anyways. Nobody wanted me.
Right, sure.
In this moment. And I'm like, I'm just going to direct the rest of my life.
Why did you like the directing so much? What was it that appealed to you so much? It was so fucking hard to get to do it, and then you do it. What was it that was like, oh, I don't need to act ever again. This is the job.
First of all, and I made no money. I mean, it was a 10-year journey. It cost me $1 gazillion, and I made no money. Listen, I like leading people. I like people. And then on top of it, when you apply what I believe to be great acting, the principles of great acting to actors who are receptive to it, I think, and you get a result like we got, I was like, oh, this is what I'm born to do. I'm not born to act. I'm born to to take a room full of professionals and craftsmen and take all 50 of us and go to the same direction. And every now and then, like a sheepdog, you have to pull people back into the image, the place you're going. And I also love the fact that I could look at people and be like, you're doing fucking great. Yeah. do a little more. How about this? Like, I like the idea of giving people freedom. And I was like, I want, as an actor, my favorite thing to do is you give me a direction and allow me to take your direction and plus it up.
Okay.
Right? To give my own expression of what you're asking me to do. So that together, I've been acting since I was 14. I'm 56 years old. My journey as an actor, right, is going to interpret through my mastery. After that many years, you can say that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The audacity of that. But if there's 10,000 hours you've mastered something, we've got a couple 10,000 hour blocks. But I'm going to take what I know and translate what you say, and together our art is going to make something bigger and better than, right? Because you're a director, you're a writer, you haven't been acting. I've been acting the whole time you've been writing. Right. So if we take each other's superpowers and put them together, we're going to make something magical. And the thing about me directing is like, I love, if you're my wardrobe, if you're a costume designer, I'm like, hey, here's my basic idea. Here's my baseline idea. I'm going to snip things out of the internet. I'm going to give them to you on a board. And I want you to take my ideas and I want you to let that just be the greatest trampoline into your own ideas. I want you to take, when we're done shooting, I said to every key when we worked, and we went out and hired not the number one in Seattle, but the number two in general, because I wanted to give people an opportunity to rise into that position of key. I was like, I want you to take everything we do on this together, and I want it to be your the thing that gets you another 20 jobs.
Yeah.
And so the thing I liked is like being able to collaborate with people across the board, be clear with my ideas enough to make sure we were all on the same page and going the same direction, and then lead people, enjoy, and like be joyful in the process. Because I think the creative process is joyful. And there's so many times that the stress of the moment, the lack of money, all those things that goes into independent films, and anyone who's ever been on a set like that, like when stress gets bad and people get tired, and that's when people get hurt, and that's when people have horrible experiences. And so at the end of the day, sitting up on that stage, I was more proud of what we created than what I was given credit for. And I think I did the best I could to give props to everyone. I mean, my DP and I became best friends. Noah Rosenthal, he did an incredible job. Rick Rosenthal was my mentor. We butted heads. I mean, we fought on that project, but he was always in the spirit of what's right. My editor, it was just a really beautiful experience. And I would love to do it again. Hollywood just was not interested in, the movie came out, it got picked up on a shitty deal. Nobody's ever seen it. You have to find it now on YouTube somewhere.
It is on YouTube. I did find it on YouTube.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be on YouTube. I mean, it's like,
I got the sense from watching it that it wasn't supposed to be, that I was like, I felt bad being like, God, I wish there was a different way for me to be watching this, but there isn't, so I have to do this. So I'm sorry I watched your movie on YouTube.
No, and as long as it's on YouTube, please go find it and watch it. It's a great little movie.
It is. It's a really good movie. And is it Wysocki?
Wysocki.
Jacob Wysocki is so good in this lead role. And also, he's an Unfriended, you guys, one of the scariest movies of the 21st century, and he's really good. I was really happy to see him in this, and I didn't expect to come out of it with one of my favorite screen dad performances I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Campbell as the dad in this there's such a tender grace to someone who could be just like a stock character, like buzz cut meathead. And I thought I really appreciated what you and him together brought forth in that character and the choices that were made around him.
Billy Campbell, first of all, is such a dear man. If you don't know him, he was the lead of Rocketeer. He actually went out and had his own boat built, from this like Swedish company. Like he's such, and I remember him like, it's been 4 years in the making, and he's just a really interesting guy. And when we got Billy, he did a buzz cut, like he put a flat top on.
Which is what you're expecting from this guy.
Yeah. But he's so good in the movie. He's so beautiful and so simple. And there's that sequence when he builds the drum kit. He's like, that costs money. And the movie's funny. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I loved about the movie too, is that there's these beats in there that Matt O'Leary has this beat of like, calls up Troy and says, we're going to a club. And he's like, I can't go to a club. There's no way I can't, and Troy hangs up on him. And the dad's like, no, you can't go out. It's
you get
10, 11 o'clock at night.
9:30 at night already? Are you kidding me?
And then Troy starts to melt down. He's like, hold on a second. You can do this. And it's like this beautiful moment
Troy's like, you're right. I can't go. Because what if I get there and I'm too fat to be there? And I'm not supposed to be there and it's horrible. And you can watch his dad suddenly being so upset that his kid hates himself. That he's like, oh, you go. You better go. You get out there.
Yeah.
And then gives the stern, like, what you're gonna have my son like back home in one piece, right? To like the punk kids
and that sequence with Matt O'Leary, who's like, yeah, and there's whatever happens in that sequence is so funny. I mean, the movie's really funny. And then look, the whole thing worked towards the premise of the movie, right? If I can just jump into the premise real quick, is this this boy. Well, do you want to do? You've seen this more recently.
I've watched it very recently. Yes, the premise of this movie is that Jacob Wysocki plays a boy named Troy, he's a big kid, he's a heavy kid, and like as Matthew said it, he experiences suicidal ideation. He really doesn't like his life. It becomes clear that he is the child of a single parent with a little brother who is an athletics all-star, much more kind of who he assumes his dad wants.
Dylan Arnold, by the way, who's having a fantastic career.
Yes, and it's the story of this kid who is clearly sort of putting himself together emotionally after the tragic death of his mother, which is something that's in the past of the story, but that clearly shapes all of these characters for who they are. And when he meets this kind of grifter in Matt O'Leary's character, who he's a junkie, he's a punk guitar player, he has let down everyone in his life, he has burned every bridge, he comes from an abusive household. You can tell he initially sort of targets Troy for being gullible, but they eventually sort of become this little organism together where they have this quote unquote band, the Tectonics.
Yes.
And they're building toward playing a show that we do not know for sure if it's ever really going to be on the horizon, but this target of them practicing for the show becomes the architecture around you watch Troy discover this environment of punk music and to like things and to have passion about things that get him out of the house and meet people and share experiences with the world as this friend who he's brought into his life starts to sort of deteriorate from his own choices and the family architecture that sort of pops up around all of them to support this and carry it through.
Oh, that was so educated. That was so smart. Oh my God. That was, well, the funny thing is I found myself going, oh, I just love it so much.
You're like, I love
the movie. I love the movie so much. There's a great sequence where he like goes and he like all of a sudden he's being manipulated into playing this concert in a storage unit and he pukes everywhere. And it's like this whole sequence that's like, yeah. And listen, it's so funny. There are things I remember beats about Scream. I remember beats about Hackers. You're in a hacker shirt. The thing about directing a movie is that it's all encompassing. You are in it 24/7 for the entire time you're in prep and then post. I have so many more memories around Fat Kid Rules the World than I do anything else I've ever done.
That's really interesting.
Because every day is associated with a picture. And in that, when you look at a picture, you remember where you are. Well, every time I look at a piece of that film, I remember where I was and what I was doing because I made that picture. And then so when we talk about it, like, and I never talk about it, nobody ever asks about Fat Kid because nobody's ever seen it. And every time I talk about it, I'm moved by that. Is if you ask me what the single greatest accomplishment in my professional career is, I would say perseverance and lasting as long as I have. And then making that movie's, it's like one of the top 5 things I've ever done in my life.
Well, and
as an actor.
Well, something I wanted to ask about it was you spent like a decade making this and it finally comes out about the time. It comes out not too long after The Descendants comes out. I think it comes out in 2012. I think Descendants comes out in 2011.
Yes.
And so you spend a big chunk of your life getting it made. It comes out around a time when you're like, am I giving up on this acting thing entirely? Or like, are we selling everything to like streamline our lives? Then, you have The Spirits Business, you have Find Familiar, which is a couple years old now. And when I wanted to hear about from that, and obviously you teach acting as well, I wanted to hear about the process of learning through milestones in your life and how that serves you the next time you go on to take a new challenge. Yeah.
Great question. Just going back a little in terms of the story around me sort of hitting, and my wife hitting sort of rock bottom in terms of work.
Yeah.
That's not true. It's not rock bottom. We had savings. If Scooby-Doo 2 hadn't happened, I'd be back in Michigan teaching acting. But Scooby-Doo 2 paid me a great amount of money that kept me around. The problem is that at that time in my life, I had been doing studio films for a long time. Mm-hmm. I was never paid a lot of money because I was always Freddie Prinze Jr.'s best friend. And that character never makes a lot of money. But I was making good enough money to live a lifestyle that I assumed for a long time would just continue to grow. Like I always thought, I'm successful. I've been successful for a long time. I'm just going to keep making money. And it turns out after Scooby-Doo 2, when the movie doesn't perform and you are no longer a bouncing teenager, there's like people aren't nearly as interested in you. And at the same time, I actually switched agencies and I went from a very good agency to the biggest agency in the world. And I was like, oh, I'm at the biggest agency in the world. I'm going to compete with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio. And cut to, I was stuck in the bottom of a pile. And if you have the offer for Leonardo DiCaprio, you're not coming to Matthew Lillard.
Okay.
So, it was definitely a time in my life where I was like, oh, I'm not working. The jobs I am getting are paying me less and less and less. And the commodity of me is getting destroyed.
A uniquely harrowing thing about this industry, like that.
Sure.
It's the idea of getting laid off at 45 and suddenly what am I going to do? Like I've been doing, but the watching yourself be estimated and valued as a commodity, and then watching how your age and how you look and compared to the youthfulness of somebody new, like to watch that direct comparison of what you were when you were wanted and what you are now when you're struggling that's a horrible collision of things.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And
that's a lot to survive.
It'd be one thing if you couldn't imagine somebody not coming back. Mm-hmm. It's another thing when you see the road littered with careers that were successful actors or actresses who have just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And listen, we were living at a level that assumed I would just continue making money. Mm-hmm. We had fast cars, we had a big house, we had private schools, we lived we wanted for nothing, and just became more and more desperate. And it was also like, there's also this, the biggest thing that happened to me in this moment is that I realized I was living for ego. I had this ego. I couldn't say to people, yeah, we're struggling. Right. Because I was like, oh, you have to show up in a Porsche.
That's a hard thing to say when you're not a public figure. Like, I have a hard time, like, the ways in which, like, I deal with, like, it's not your favorite conversation you like to fucking have with people. And the people that you do have it with, you're like, I don't want to be the person who's always got the goddamn struggle story. Yeah. Like, I don't want to say, when it's like, so how's it going? You don't want to tell the same goddamn thing again. That you're like, well, not better yet. Yeah. But then let alone that, to compound that with being a public figure. Like, that's a ton of pressure and stigma.
And what does Hollywood want? Hollywood wants success. They want the kid that just came off the thing, that has the thing that's going to pop. Like, they don't need a dude who's been 20 movies in, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s best friend. And, and then nobody's interested in you. And, and it was just this crazy time. And I've said this a bunch, but it's worth saying again. My father-in-law pulled me aside and said, he's very practical and he loves me very much, but it's time to, maybe you should go sell pharmaceuticals. And I'm like, I have been in over $1 billion of box office worldwide. Yeah. I can't just go sell pharmaceuticals. And so so in this moment, I said to my wife, and I had been offered a part on Dancing with the Stars, and I thought about taking it because I would have made more money. And then my agent was like, yeah, you'll be a celebrity. And I would just kept thinking, oh, I'm never going to win an Academy Award if I've been on Dancing with the Stars. And so I literally fired my agent, my manager, my lawyer in 3 consecutive phone calls. I called my wife and, we'd been talking about what we're going to do. I was like, it's time to sell the house. Mm-hmm. It's time to get rid of the cars. It's time. And she was like, I have to go back to work. I mean, it was like the most bonding moment in our relationship ever because we were thick as thieves, and it was like, okay. And she's like, well, what do we tell people? And I say, you tell them that I'm not working. And if I'm not working, then like we have to just change. And it's so funny. If you asked her today if she would go back, and then we basically bought a house. So our mortgage right now is $1,600 a month. And
less than my rent.
I mean, right? And
less than my rent.
And like, I'm so proud of that. Yeah, I literally tell people all the time, and that has changed our lives because it's given us a like, okay, no matter what happens, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that sense of security as an artist is a big deal. But once that security was secured, the things that became important were, how do I stay, like, how am I going to feed my kids if I'm not acting?
Yeah.
And so that's why I started to teach. And for me, I've found that teaching was like it is still one of my favorite things to do. And then I needed to start creating community. I needed to start creating opportunities to be around other actors. And that's, I mean, actor actions where we come together and read plays, that picked up. And yeah, and all these moments happened to build a life around, not around Hollywood. When I was defining my life in terms of the parts I was playing, I now had to define my life with something else. Yeah. And to me, that opened my life up in a profound way. And that's the thing I say to actors. I just put together a syllabus for USC saying, we should teach this class. And that class is how to survive as an artist.
That's a very good idea.
It's the only thing we should be teaching.
Because it's also, and a friend of mine has been struggling with this a lot lately. Like, he's a director, and it's so difficult when your job is actor, when your job is director. And that's true even when you're not working. But then it's a thing that you kind of have to explain to people who aren't doing it, how it's, and you have to explain it to yourself. How is it, like, how do I call myself this if it's not what I'm actively doing? But like you said, like, the number of days per year that you're doing this thing compared to the days of the year that you identify as this thing, which is all of them. It's like, but then if I'm only doing something 60 days of those 365, am I that? How am I that? What does that mean?
And if I'm not making enough money to feed my kids, or stay in a lifestyle, if I don't have things to tell my friends or my mom and dad or my partner, like, all of this shame, like, Biden used to talk about this thing called dignity of work, right? There's the dignity of work. And I've held on to that for so long because to me, it was resonating, because I was like, I have lost my own dignity as a man to be able to and I'm from the Midwest, and I watched my dad struggle his entire life to make ends meet, working ungodly hours through the weekends. And here I am playing golf and I have no money.
Right.
And I'm like, what is happening? Like, where, and so all of that has led me to this thing of like, how do we survive as artists? And to me, it's, and I think we should teach a class. Acting's really easy.
Yeah.
Right. You hit a mark, you say your line, you put on makeup. The hard part is the time in between jobs. And we have to teach what to do as an artist and how you continually define that in the mirror of Instagram and social media and all the other BS that we're being fed in the outside world. Like, how do you hold on to that and live that life? And it's really difficult.
Well, I have to frame a wrap-up question, which is truly
wrap up. Oh no!
I know.
No, we haven't. No,
I agree.
Sorry, I know we could.
That's
say all that.
total BS. We just started.
I know we just started.
It's because I talk so much, and you're going to cut it out anyway. So let's go another 20.
Okay. I mean, listen, Marissa, I don't want to make your job harder, but like,
Marissa, it's a two-parter. Matthew Lillard's a two-parter.
Well, The thing I wanted to like kind of bridge.
We haven't even talked about your cute shirt.
Listen.
It's hackers.
I will give a shout out to this shirt. This shirt is from Disperse Press. This is Disperse Media. This is a recreation of the Freaks shirt in the movie Hackers.
I love that movie
because I feel like we got a lot of bootlegs out there that are like an homage to the poster, that are collages, things like that. But this is just a recreate, and on the back it says like the aliens are coming to Earth to save us. It's just a recreation of the Freak shirt, and I wanted to make sure that I was like, I could wear any one of the dozen Scream shirts that I have, which is a conservative estimate. That
really? Do you have a dozen?
Yeah, at least. Some of which have your face on it.
That's so funny.
But this felt like more of
Why
a
do you love
homage.
Scream so much?
It is my favorite horror franchise of all time.
Why?
It did not take the new ones to make me love 3 and 4. I have always loved 3 and 4. The dual final girl premise that it has always worked off of, obviously, with Sid and Gale, and then Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera, the Carpenter sisters, and the newer ones. I think it has allowed for, I think Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson really allowed for more total pictures of what a central female character in horror could do to survive when you didn't have to have one laden with being like the pure Vestal virgin. and having to kind of water her down with that kind of vanilla nature, when you could have like the offset of someone like a Gail Weathers, who was a counterpart. So you got to have your two survivor girls that got to be like the total picture of one full, interesting, fun person, as opposed to like a sort of nonsense transformation of one person. I like the asexuality of Scream a lot for a slasher movie, which is a very penetrative metaphor of like violation and lack of consent. There is always a lack of sexualization about Ghostface, for the most part, that I have found like very satisfying. I don't feel like I have to take a shower after I watch a Scream movie.
That's good. They're
funny. Courtney Cox is eternal. Gail Weathers never lost a goddamn beat as that character. I think I love the Sidney Prescott character, but I also think that if you read her lines just like straight out, it could be a very uninteresting person. But the Academy Award level vulnerability and nuance that that Neve Campbell brought to Sidney Prescott, I think, is what makes it an all-time performance. Not necessarily just because she survives over and over again, but because of the performance itself is so goddamn good that there is a sweep of black and white and gray in the middle with what Neve Campbell does that I think it just makes her the most compelling lead performer. And I, for one, am happy to see her returning to the franchise. I love it. I love it.
Good.
And I will say, I have to say, my favorite thing about your performance in the original movie is just the absolutely, because again, we've talked about like you're very good at big performance, and I've heard you talk about like how you can be really quiet, but you can also chew the hell out of scenery. My favorite moment as Stu Macher is the quietest moment you have in the movie, where you just pick up the phone, bleeding, almost dead already, and you just say, "Hello."
Hello. That's so
I think
funny.
it's the highlight of the entire performance.
I have such a clear memory around that because I wanted to sound normal. Hello. I wanted, because he's like bleeding out.
And
he's trying to mask it.
So extreme the entire time.
It's so funny. That was an active choice.
It felt like it had to be, because it's so in counter to everything insane that you two have just been doing. And it also
then he hits me with the phone.
Your life is draining from your body because you're bleeding out. And
not really.
Your tiny face.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. As we've been meant to understand it for some decades. But just the tiny, hello.
So funny.
You're such a funny actor, and you're pulling back the strings so massively in that moment, and it's still so funny.
It's funny.
So that's that. But yeah, the what I was asking about initially was, this actually connects to Skeet. So Scream is a tie-in here, where I was listening to another interview where you were talking about fan cons. And the first time you did one, you were spending like kind of too much time with each person, because like you just
10 minutes.
Yeah, like you couldn't get through everybody, and you're like, okay, well that's not sustainable. But then you had mentioned that Skeet Ulrich said something to you, which was that your special gift is to make people feel seen.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear if that was something that was a learned trait of yours, if it was something that's always been like intrinsic to you, and why that is something that's such a priority for you. Because even the way you talked about making Fat Kid Rules the World, like wanting these like number twos to get their shot to be like the key role on set, like that is clearly like from on screen to in your teaching to as a director, you've said things that have underscored that as a priority. And I would like to know why that matters to you.
He said it to me, and it was a gut punch. Right? Because it was like, oh, I don't do a lot of deep thinking before I do.
Sure.
Right? I think some people measure twice. I cut 4 times before I measure. And the reality is that when I got to conventions, the first time I ever got there was in New Jersey at Cherry Hill. And I was like, I'm never sitting behind the table and transacting with somebody. Uh-huh. I felt like that was dirty, and it was against who I was, even though I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And so I sat on the desk and I welcomed everyone, I hugged everyone, and I said hi. What ended up happening is I ended up realizing there's a great story. I'm going to sidetrack for 2 seconds. I'll get back to it. I watched Kathleen Turner. Have you ever heard this story?
I've heard. Is this on Serial Mom?
Yeah.
I would like you to tell it again. Also, I would like to sing the praises of Kathleen Turner. So
yeah, okay.
Which we don't do enough.
Okay, so there's a moment in the first movie I did called Serial Mom, and I watched Kathleen Turner walk across Towson State campus, and at the time, Kathleen Turner, who we love, Kathleen Turner.
Yes, yes.
Like, incredible.
V.I. Warchowski was a formative movie of my young years. Doesn't come up nearly enough.
That is the gayest thing you've ever said. Body heat.
Is so accurate.
You had that. I had body heat. Same thing. Same result. She was my mom. She played my mom. I was 21 years old. I'm in a John Waters film, and I watched her walk across the campus. And she was adored, and people were flocking to her. Wow. And I turned to Sam Waterston. I'm like, why doesn't she wear a baseball hat or something? Like, shouldn't she be hiding? Uh-huh. And he's like, no. And he used there's a book called The Moviegoer, and I've bastardized this story now a million times, but it has impacted my life in a way that I hope Sam Waterston someday hears this because it's changed my life. He explained fame like this, and at that time he was very famous.
Yeah,
it goes like this. There's a book called The Moviegoer, and in the 50s the guy's walking down the street and he's with his girlfriend or his partner, and he's walking down the street. This guy stops him, and the guy says, hey buddy, can I get a light? And our hero, the guy and his girlfriend, look up, and it's James Dean.
Okay.
Right? And all of a sudden, they're on 7th Avenue, and they just had breakfast. I had, pancakes and eggs, and I'm wearing a gingham shirt, and I took out my cigarettes, and as I light a cigarette, it took me a bunch of times to light it, and James Dean looks me in the eyes, and he goes, hey, thanks, bud. And he turned around and walked off. And all of a sudden, that moment becomes, I know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I was wearing. It was James Dean. He was in this. And that moment in the history of moments of that lifetime become immortalized because somebody who's famous walks in and makes it that moment special.
It's not James Dean, but Carly Rae Jepsen. I was just in line at a Whole Foods, and it was a busy Sunday. And I just turned around to say to the person behind me, who I assumed was just another person, and I just went like, lines, right? Like, and looked up in her eyes, and it was Carly Rae Jepsen. And you could tell I had this moment of terror where she realized she was recognized and surely thought I was trying to contrive an interaction with her.
Sure.
When I definitely just was commiserating with somebody about a long line on a Sunday night. And she just which there was nothing else to say at like lines, am I right? But and now I remember standing in the goddamn line at Whole Foods.
Of course.
Because I said it to Carly Rae Jepsen.
Yes, of course. And you're in that moment. And to Carly, she does not remember that moment. No. Like, James Dean is like, I needed a light. The transaction is a one. So the thing about fame is that fame is a one-way transaction.
Yes.
And the reality is that if you understand that it is a power for good, it is super powerful to make somebody feel seen in those moments. You can take a little queer kid in Kansas City and hug the shit out of them and say, hey, I fucking see you. I love you. You can save a life in less than 3 minutes. And to me, as soon as you understand that transaction, then very few times in my life go by where I'm like, dismissing people outright. That's not to say it doesn't happen. I'm not a saint.
Sure.
But there are moments, like, I think that transaction is really powerful. And so it's really defined this last sort of, I consider myself rounding third, headed for home in a career. And I'm just sort of loving every beat of it. And I realize that I'm, the reason I'm here is to impact that kid rather than win an Academy Award. Although I'm still into the Academy Award. I'm still ready.
I think your chances only get better as you get older.
On my deathbed.
That is the luxury of being a man, in part, is that your chances get better as you get older. Yeah. I think as long as you are still able, then I think that is. Yeah. But I do, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation generally. But I think I've heard you talk about if there's one thing I want to let actors know, it's that when I started getting work, I thought I was always going to get work, that the path only went one way, and that was up. And to hear you talk too about the shame around the challenge of not finding work, and I find myself admittedly in a similar situation right now, the shame I deal with as a partner to someone who is not as stable as they would like to be, and being like, God, do I pull my weight in a situation where we are equals, but I feel like I am not doing it? Like, it is, I am so grateful to you to talk about those things outright in a way that is destigmatizing and is, God, the amount of people to feel seen in the arts of hearing like, oh, but I'm allowed to struggle and I'm allowed to say it. And on top of the logistics of how hard my job is, I don't have to perpetuate the bottling up of my shame and insecurity.
Right.
So I appreciate that you do that.
Oh,
And I thank you for the generosity of your conversation and joining us today here on Feeling Seen.
Very sweet.
You're very sweet. You're very sweet.
Very sweet.
Thank you.
Well, listen, if we can just like let go of the bullshit, I mean, life gets way easier.
One of the earliest guests we had on the show was Isabel Furman, and it was after her Independent Spirit Award nomination for The Novice, which is an incredible movie. I hope everybody who has not seen it goes to see it, finds it somewhere. We talked to her about how she got the Independent Spirit Award nomination the day she went to fill up her card, and her card was her car with gas, and her card was declined.
Yeah.
And she's standing there with one of the highest like recognitions of her career, thinking, I hope this changes something because this can't go on this way.
Yeah.
I hope this is the thing that like pushes me over another threshold because otherwise like I can't put gas in my car.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a horrible way to feel on top of the difficulty of just being a contractor. It's nice to have people have the generosity of spirit of being willing to, like you said, put the bullshit aside and just say, hey, I know we are personas, but we are also people.
Yeah.
And not indestructible as such. But so thank you for coming onto the show and sharing your time with us today.
What a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so nice.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.